My friends, have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and seen not the sparkle of your own dreams, but the weight of other people's burdens pressed into your spirit? Have you felt your joy dim because you have poured every drop of your soul into fixing broken hearts, mending shattered paths, stitching together lives that were never meant to be carried on your shoulders? This is the trap of the fixer. It sneaks in like kindness. It wears the mask of compassion, but slowly it drains you until you forget who you are, until you forget you deserve to live fully, not only for others, but for yourself. Stay with me, for what I will share with you today will not only awaken you to the chains of the fixer's trap, but also hand you the keys to freedom. There is a crown many of us wear, and at first it feels like honor. It feels like greatness. It is invisible to the world, but heavy on the soul. This is the crown of the fixer. It is not made of gold, nor lined with jewels. It is crafted from expectation, forged in the fire of responsibility, and polished by the endless demands of others. People see you standing tall beneath it, and they think, there goes the strong one, there goes the dependable one. There goes the person who will make it all right again. They bow to your reliability. They praise your endurance. They lean on your strength. But what they cannot see is that while this crown may sparkle with their gratitude, it weighs down your spirit until your own shoulders tremble beneath its weight. You did not ask for this crown, yet somehow it was placed upon your head. Maybe it came from childhood when you were the one who had to keep the family together, the one who had to mature before your time, the one who became the comforter while still needing comfort yourself. Maybe it grew from friendships when you became the listener, the healer, the glue that held everyone else intact. Or maybe it was love that put it there, love that turned into obligation, where you carried the pieces of someone else's life while yours quietly unraveled. However it came, one day you woke up and realized that you were not only carrying your own life, but dragging behind you the lives of everyone who had come to depend on you. And let me tell you this truth, even the strongest neck will grow tired. Even the most generous heart will grow weary. Even the most willing hands will begin to tremble when the crown becomes too heavy to bear. The danger of this crown is not only in its weight, but in the illusion it creates. It tricks you into believing that your worth lies only in what you can fix, in what you can mend, in what you can carry for others. It convinces you that if you put the crown down, if you refuse to wear it, if you dare to rest, the world will fall apart. But the world is not yours to save. It is not your duty to hold up every collapsing wall, to mend every broken bridge, to rescue every soul from drowning in their own waters. The fixer's crown is heavy because it is made not only of other people's troubles, but also of their expectations. You have been praised for your strength so many times that now you fear what will happen if you show your weakness. You have been leaned on so often that you no longer know what it feels like to lean. You have been told, silently or directly, that you are the one who must always rise, always mend, always endure. And so you keep the crown upon your head even when your spirit begs for rest, even when your heart whispers, "This is not mine to carry." What makes the crown so deceptive is that it feels noble. Helping others, caring for them, being there for them, these are beautiful acts. But when those acts become a chain, when they become your prison, when they strip you of your ability to live for yourself, then that crown is not honor, it is burden. You cannot build your own kingdom while forever repairing everyone else's. You cannot dance freely while always holding the weight of another on your back. You cannot fully live if your life has been reduced to surviving under the weight of a crown that was never meant to be worn forever. I want you to imagine yourself standing in a room filled with mirrors. You look into one mirror and you see yourself strong, smiling, dependable. That is the image the world praises. Then you look into another mirror and you see the shadows beneath your eyes, the fatigue in your spirit, the cracks in your joy. That is the image you keep hidden. The crown sits on your head in both reflections, yet in one it glitters with glory, and in the other it sinks into your flesh, cutting into the tenderness of who you truly are. Both are real, but only one is killing you slowly. The crown of the fixer whispers to you, do not stop. If you stop, everything falls apart. If you stop, you will lose love. If you stop, they will no longer need you. And because of that whisper, you keep going, even when your feet ache, even when your heart grows faint. But hear me now, your life was not given to you to be drained into everyone else's. Your life was given to you to be lived, to be savored, to be celebrated. You are not just a fixer. You are a dreamer, a builder, a lover, a creator, a soul worthy of joy. When you wear this crown too long, you forget yourself. You forget that you too deserve to be held, to be comforted, to be cared for. You forget that your worth does not lie in what you can carry, but in who you are when you set everything down. The crown of the fixer may have been handed to you without your choice, but you do have a choice now. You can begin to loosen it, to lift it, to say, this weight is not mine alone. The beauty of life is that it was never designed for one person to hold all the pieces. Each soul has its own work to do, its own burdens to carry, its own healing to find. When you continue to wear the heavy crown, you rob others of their chance to grow, their chance to learn strength, their chance to find themselves, and you rob yourself of the lightness that comes when you finally lay it down. My dear, this crown may look like honor, but it is not your destiny. It may shine with borrowed praise, but it will not bring you peace. It may make you the strong one in every story, but strength that comes at the cost of your soul is not true strength. The crown is heavy, but you are not bound to wear it forever. There is another life waiting. The life where your head is free, your shoulders unburdened, and your soul alive again. And the first step toward that freedom begins with daring to admit that the crown of the fixer, no matter how noble it seems, is slowly draining you of the very life you were meant to live. Love is the most sacred of human languages, the force that binds families, sustains friendships, ignites passion, and heals the deepest of wounds. Love is the very air of the soul, and it is no wonder we bend ourselves toward it, stretch ourselves for it, sacrifice for it. Yet there is a danger that lurks in love's shadow, a quiet deception that slips in when the heart is not careful. It is the disguise of love. It is when fixing, mending, rescuing, endless giving of yourself masquerades as love, even though what it truly is the draining away of your life's essence. You tell yourself, I do this because I love them. I carry their weight because I care. I stay up through the night worrying, solving, repairing, because that is what love demands. But let me ask you, what kind of love leaves you hollow? What kind of love empties your cup until not a drop remains for your own thirst? What kind of love teaches you to forget your own heartbeat while rushing to save another's? That is not love, my dear. That is devotion twisted into a chain. That is compassion turned into captivity. That is love wearing a mask so convincing that even you, in your exhaustion, cannot see the truth. The disguise of love tells you that your worth is proven by your sacrifices. The more you give up, the more you surrender, the more you deny yourself. Then the stronger your love must be. But love is not measured by how much of yourself you erase. True love breathes life into both the giver and the receiver. It nourishes, it replenishes, it fills you even as you pour out. When love begins to feel like depletion, when it tastes like bitterness on your tongue, when it leaves you weary instead of renewed, then it is not love at all. It is a trap wrapped in the illusion of tenderness. Think back on the times you called it love when you were really carrying someone else's refusal to grow. You called it love when you excused their patterns, when you patched up their mistakes, when you absorbed their chaos into your own quiet spirit. You told yourself, I must keep forgiving, I must keep saving, I must keep fixing. But were you truly loving them, or were you rescuing them from the very lessons that could have set them free? Were you offering love, or were you protecting them from the mirror of accountability they so desperately needed to face? There is a truth too many hearts are afraid to face. Love is not about losing yourself. Love does not demand you vanish. Love does not call you to bleed so another may thrive. If someone's survival depends on your endless sacrifice, that is not a partnership. That is a dependency that wears the costume of affection. And oh, how easy it is to believe the costume. The disguise can look beautiful. It can look noble. It can look like loyalty, like devotion, like the purest form of care. But underneath it is a slow erosion, a gentle draining of your spirit until you no longer recognize yourself. Real love, sacred, enduring love, does not empty you. It builds, it multiplies. It is a fountain, not a desert. When you love and are loved in truth, there is a rising within you, not a falling. There is joy, not fatigue. There is freedom, not chains. You laugh more than you cry. You grow taller instead of shrinking smaller. That is the sign of love in its purest form. But the disguise of love teaches you to accept exhaustion as devotion. It tells you that suffering is proof of care. It whispers that if you are not endlessly available, endlessly fixing, endlessly giving, then you are failing at love. And so you press on, tired as you may be, wearing yourself thin under the lie that love must look like sacrifice without end. You lose the song in your spirit while convincing yourself that silence is love. You lose the shine in your eyes while convincing yourself that dimness is loyalty. You lose yourself in the name of love, and in doing so, you betray the very essence of what love was meant to be. You see, the disguise of love is clever. It thrives on guilt. It whispers in your ear, if you stop helping, you are selfish. If you stop fixing, you do not truly care. If you rest, if you choose yourself, you will lose them. And out of fear of losing, you lose yourself first. You become a ghost in your own life, present in everyone else's, but absent from your own. Love, in its truest nature, does not require you to disappear. It does not demand you carry another's burdens while yours go unattended. It does not call for your silence, your suppression, your exhaustion. Instead, true love calls you into balance. It invites you to give and also to receive. It asks you to care for another without abandoning yourself. It honors the dignity of both souls, not just one. When you begin to see through the disguise, something shifts. You realize that rescuing is not always loving. You understand that fixing is not always caring. You see that sometimes the most loving act you can offer is to step back, to allow someone the gift of growth through their own struggle. Love, in its wisdom, knows when to stand beside and when to stand away. It knows when to support and when to let go. The disguise of love is heavy because it keeps you bound. But once you unmask it, you will see that you were never meant to love at the expense of your own life. You were never meant to vanish beneath the weight of someone else's brokenness. Love does not disguise itself in chains. Love, in its true and radiant form, sets both souls free. There is a rhythm to life, a natural balance between giving and receiving, between pouring out and being filled again. The earth itself teaches us this. Tides come in and tides go out. Seasons of abundance follow seasons of rest. The sun rises only to set so that night may renew the world. Yet many hearts, especially the tender-hearted, lose their way in this balance. They forget the ebb and flow, and instead they fall into the endless pouring, the relentless giving, the unending sacrifice. And in this forgetting, they enter a trap so subtle, so disguised as goodness, that they do not even see the bars that close in around them. It is the trap of endless giving. At first, it feels noble to give. It feels holy even, to be the one who shows up, the one who offers, the one who makes the difference. It feeds a quiet sense of purpose. You say to yourself, if I give, I am needed. If I give, I am valuable. If I give, I am loved. But soon the giving becomes not an act of love, but a requirement, not a choice, but a chain. You do not pause to ask if your soul has anything left to offer. You do not stop to notice that your own cup has been emptied. Instead, you keep pouring even when there is nothing left to spill. There is no end to the needs of this world. There is no finish line to the hunger, the sorrow, the brokenness that cries out for healing. If you decide that you alone must answer every call, you will give and give until your hands tremble, until your spirit falters, until you collapse beneath the weight of your own generosity. The trap lies in believing that if you stop, if you take a breath, if you dare to rest, everything will fall apart. But hear me well, the world does not rest on your shoulders. The earth does not turn because of your sacrifices. Life has been unfolding for centuries before you arrived, and it will continue its dance even when you decide to step aside. The trap of endless giving teaches you that saying no is selfish, that resting is weakness, that boundaries are walls built from cruelty. And so, you keep saying yes even when your heart whispers no. You keep showing up even when your spirit begs to stay home. You keep fixing, carrying, rescuing until your own needs are shadows cast in the background, unseen and unattended. What begins as kindness turns into depletion. What begins as compassion becomes exhaustion. What begins as love becomes a slow and steady erasure of yourself. The tragedy of this trap is not only in the way it drains you, but also in the way it stunts those you seek to help. For when you give endlessly, without pause, without balance, you rob others of the opportunity to grow their own strength. You rescue them from the very lessons that could have built resilience within them. You shield them from the weight of responsibility that could have taught them to stand on their own 2 feet. In your endless giving, you may believe you are offering love, but in truth, you may be enabling dependence. Sometimes the most compassionate act is not to pour more from your empty cup, but to step back and allow another to discover their own wellspring. Endless giving also deceives you into believing that your worth lies in what you provide. The trap whispers that if you stop, you will be forgotten, abandoned, unloved. It convinces you that people only keep you close because of what you do for them, not because of who you are. And slowly, you begin to measure yourself by your usefulness rather than your essence. You become afraid of silence, afraid of rest, afraid of stillness, because in those quiet spaces, you can no longer prove your value through giving. You forget that you, in your bare existence, are already worthy of love. Picture a river that never rests, that never pauses, that pours itself out without ceasing. At first, the land flourishes around it, but eventually, the river dries, leaving behind cracked earth and barren soil. This is what happens when you live in the trap of endless giving. You may nourish others for a season, but without replenishment, you will one day find yourself empty, unable to offer even a drop more. Giving without receiving is not love. It is depletion disguised as virtue. It is not your calling to be the endless well for everyone else. You are not the eternal source of healing. You are not the sole savior of every broken story. You are a human being with needs, with limits, with a soul that requires rest and renewal. To honor those needs is not selfishness, it is wisdom. For when you allow yourself to be filled again, your giving flows from abundance, not from scarcity. It becomes joyful, not burdensome. It becomes sustainable, not draining. The trap of endless giving closes in because it flatters you with the illusion of importance. It makes you believe that you alone are holding everything together. But this is not truth. It is ego wrapped in exhaustion. The truth is that life is shared, burdens are shared, healing is shared, love is shared. You were never meant to be the sole provider of strength, the endless giver of care. You were meant to give, yes, but also to receive. You were meant to serve, yes, but also to rest. You were meant to pour out, yes, but also to be poured into. The world may applaud your endless giving. They may call you strong, selfless, noble. They may sing songs of your sacrifice, yet none of that praise will fill the emptiness left within you. The only way to break free is to remember that your life is not a well to be drained dry. Your life is a flame, and even the brightest flame needs tending, needs fuel, needs rest. If you give without pause, you will flicker out. And when you do, the same people who lean so heavily upon you may simply search for another light, leaving you in darkness with no strength left to rise. So I say to you, beware of the trap of endless giving. It may look like love, it may feel like purpose, it may sound like honor, but in truth, it is a slow surrender of your very self. Life was not meant to be lived entirely for others. Life was meant to be shared, to flow in balance, to breathe in and out like the tides. You deserve the fullness of that rhythm. You deserve a life that gives and also receives, that serves and also rests, that loves without losing itself along the way. There is a silence that no one speaks about. It is not the silence of peace, not the silence of still waters or the hush of dawn before the birds begin their song. This silence is heavier. It lingers within the fixer, the giver, the rescuer. It is the silence of a soul that has been overlooked, neglected, and forgotten by everyone else, yes, but more tragically by you yourself. You know the sound of everyone else's pain. You can recite their stories as if they were your own. You carry their heartbreaks in your chest, their failures in your memory, their struggles in your weary hands. You are the one they call when their storms rage. You are the one who listens, who comforts, who repairs. And yet, when the world grows quiet and the night wraps itself around you, you realize that no one has asked about your storms. No one has leaned close enough to hear the tremor in your voice, to notice the ache you carry in silence. The fixer's soul is often silent, not because there is nothing to say, but because it has learned that its voice is always the last to be heard. You have taught others that you will be the listener, not the speaker, the healer, not the one who needs healing, the strong tower, not the fragile human. And so, when your heart aches, you press it down. When your spirit longs to cry, you swallow the tears. When your soul whispers, "Please notice me," you silence it with the louder cry of someone else's need. This silence is dangerous, for it convinces you that your needs are small, that your struggles are insignificant, that your pain is not worthy of attention. It tells you, your story is not as important as theirs. Your wounds can wait. Your voice must remain quiet. And slowly, you begin to vanish inside yourself, present for everyone else, but absent from your own life. You may look strong on the outside. You may laugh, smile, and reassure others that all is well. But deep within, the silence grows thicker. It is the silence of unspoken fears, of swallowed disappointments, of dreams deferred because someone else's crisis demanded your time. It is the silence of your soul begging to be acknowledged, begging to be heard, begging to be loved, not for what it gives, but simply for what it is. I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time someone truly asked how you were? Not out of politeness, but with the intention to sit and listen to your heart's truth? When was the last time you allowed yourself to answer honestly, without rushing to say, "I'm fine"? How long has your soul been whispering beneath the noise, waiting for you to finally turn inward and listen? The silence of your own soul often shows itself in subtle ways. It shows up in the exhaustion you cannot explain, even after rest. It shows up in the irritability that surprises you, in the sudden tears you cannot trace to any cause, in the moments where you feel invisible even in a room full of people. It shows up in the way joy feels foreign, as though you are watching life from behind a glass wall instead of living within it. These are not random moods. These are the cries of a soul that has been silenced too long. You have been taught to believe that listening to yourself is selfish, that if you pause to tend to your own soul, you are abandoning those who depend on you. But let me tell you, there is no greater betrayal than ignoring the voice within you. You cannot endlessly silence your own needs and expect to live whole. You cannot mute your soul and expect it to sing. The silence will grow until it becomes unbearable, until it becomes a heaviness that no amount of giving can lift. There is a sacredness in listening to yourself, to sit quietly and ask, what do I need? What do I feel? What is my truth in this moment? Is not selfishness, it is survival. Your soul longs to be heard by you first, before anyone else. If you do not listen to it, no one else truly can. You cannot wait for the world to notice the silence within you. You must be the one to lean in and say, I hear you, I see you, I will not abandon you again. And when you begin to listen, something powerful happens. The silence starts to soften. The heaviness begins to lift. Your soul, once muted, begins to find its voice again. You remember the things that once brought you joy, the passions you set aside, the dreams you buried beneath responsibility. You realize that you, too, are allowed to want, to need, to be cared for. You realize that your worth is not in how many lives you fix, but in the life you are willing to live fully for yourself. The silence of your own soul is not empty. It is full of truths waiting for your attention. It holds your deepest desires, your unhealed wounds, your forgotten laughter, your hidden strength. It waits patiently year after year for you to stop running from yourself, to stop drowning in everyone else's noise, to finally return home to who you are. And here is the truth that may feel strange, even frightening. The moment you give your soul permission to speak, it will. It will tell you what you have been avoiding. It will call you to rest when you are weary. It will tell you which relationships drain you and which ones breathe life into you. It will guide you toward the spaces where you belong and away from the places where you have stayed too long. Your soul is wise. Its silence is not a punishment. It is an invitation to listen, to heal, to rise again. So many fixers lose themselves because they forget that their own souls matter too. They give and give, but they never pause to hear the quiet within. And yet, the quiet is where your truest power lies. The quiet is where your healing begins. The quiet is where you remember that you are not just a giver, not just a fixer, not just a rescuer. You are a soul, alive and deserving, with a story, with a purpose, with a voice that deserves to be heard. There is a lie that has been whispered into the hearts of many gentle souls. It is the lie that says if you set boundaries, you are unkind. If you say no, you are selfish. If you step back, you are cold. This lie has kept countless people trapped in exhaustion, carrying loads that were never meant to be theirs, saying yes until their own voices disappear. But hear me now, boundaries are not cruel. Boundaries are holy. They are the fences that protect the garden of your soul from being trampled by careless feet. When you live without boundaries, you leave the door of your life wide open. Anyone can walk in, anyone can take, anyone can leave behind their chaos for you to clean. At first, you tell yourself that this is love, that this is what it means to be kind. You convince yourself that the open door proves your compassion. But over time, you notice that your house, the inner home of your spirit, has grown cluttered. Your peace is gone. Your energy is drained. The flowers of your joy are withering because they have been stepped on too many times. Boundaries are not walls that shut the world out. They are gates that decide what enters and what must remain outside. They are not about cruelty, but about clarity. When you set a boundary, you are saying, this is who I am, this is what I can give, this is what I cannot allow. It is the act of honoring yourself enough to refuse to be diminished in the name of pleasing others. And when you honor yourself, you are teaching others how to honor you too. Too often, we confuse sacrifice with love. We think that the more we give up, the more we prove our devotion. And so we let people take our time, our energy, our peace. We let them drain us, thinking this is the price of love. But what happens when you are emptied? What happens when you have nothing left to give? You see, a candle cannot light the way for others if it has burned itself out. A soul without boundaries is like a candle consumed by every flame around it until nothing remains but smoke. The fear of boundaries comes from the fear of rejection. You think, if I say no, they will leave. If I draw a line, they will call me unloving. If I refuse, I will lose them, and perhaps some will leave. But let me tell you, those who walk away because you dared to protect your peace were never truly there for you. They were there for what you could provide, for what you could carry, for what you could sacrifice. Boundaries reveal the truth of relationships. They show you who values you for who you are, not just for what you give. Imagine a garden without a fence. Animals wander in, eating the fruit, trampling the flowers, digging up the soil. The gardener works endlessly, planting, watering, tending, only to watch the harvest vanish before it ripens. That garden will never flourish, but add a fence. Not to keep beauty out, but to protect what is sacred. And suddenly the flowers bloom, the fruit ripens, the soil thrives. Your life is that garden. Without boundaries, everything precious within you is consumed by demands that do not care for your well-being. With boundaries, you create the space where your spirit can flourish, and from that flourishing, you can offer fruit that nourishes others without destroying yourself. Boundaries are not only for others, they are also for you. They remind you where you end and where someone else begins. They teach you that you are responsible for your choices, your growth, your healing, and others are responsible for theirs. Without boundaries, you take on the weight of everyone's journey, believing it is your duty to carry them. But boundaries whisper back, it is not your burden to bear. You are here to walk alongside, not to walk in their place. It takes courage to set boundaries. It takes strength to look at someone you love and say, I cannot do this for you. It takes faith to trust that by stepping back, you are not abandoning them, but giving them the sacred opportunity to rise on their own. Boundaries are not rejection, they are respect. They respect your humanity and theirs. They respect the truth that love is not about possession, not about control, not about dependence, but about freedom. The world may call you selfish for setting boundaries, but that is because the world has grown comfortable with your self-abandonment. People grow used to your endless yes, your constant availability, your unceasing willingness to sacrifice. When you begin to say no, it disrupts the pattern. It forces them to face their own responsibilities, their own growth. And while some may resist, while some may accuse, the ones who truly love you will understand. They will honor your yes because they know it is sincere, not born from guilt or exhaustion. Without boundaries, resentment takes root. You give and give until bitterness grows where joy once lived. You smile on the outside but feel trapped on the inside. You serve, but secretly you long for someone to serve you. Boundaries break this cycle. They release you from the resentment of overgiving. They allow you to choose freely, to give when your heart desires, not when your guilt demands. Boundaries transform service into joy again, love into freedom again, sacrifice into choice again. And what of the soul that fears boundaries will make them alone? Let me tell you, loneliness is not cured by filling your life with people who trample your spirit. Loneliness is not healed by saying yes to everything in hopes of being loved. The deepest loneliness of all is being surrounded by people yet unseen, unheard, unvalued. Boundaries do not create loneliness. They end it. For when you honor yourself, you attract those who will honor you too. When you protect your peace, you draw near those who wish to keep it intact. Boundaries do not push love away. They invite the right kind of love in. So let go of the lie. Refuse to believe that boundaries are cruelty. They are the highest form of self-respect. They are the shield that allows your spirit to remain whole. They are the structure that lets your love flow without fear of depletion. Boundaries are not the end of love. They are the beginning of it. Letting go is one of the hardest lessons for a heart that has grown accustomed to carrying, to fixing, to holding together what was never theirs to hold. The thought of release feels like betrayal. The very idea of loosening your grip feels like abandonment. You tell yourself, if I let go, they will fall apart. If I step back, everything will break. If I release, I will be to blame. And so you clutch tighter, hold longer, give more. Yet the more you cling, the heavier the burden grows, until your hands ache, your shoulders bend, and your spirit begins to suffocate under the weight of what you were never meant to carry forever. But hear me, there is freedom in letting go. There is power in release. What you fear will destroy may in truth be the very thing that sets both you and them free. Letting go is not abandonment. It is not cruelty. It is not indifference. It is an act of trust, an act of courage, an act of deep love. Love not only for others, but for yourself. It is the recognition that you are not the savior of every broken story, not the architect of every destiny, not the one who must forever keep the pieces from scattering. Life has its own wisdom. Every soul has its own path. Every journey has its own lessons. And when you insist on holding everything together, you rob others of the very experiences that would have taught them how to stand on their own feet. The freedom of letting go begins when you understand that struggle is not always the enemy. Pain, though harsh, is often the teacher. Failure, though bitter, is often the soil in which strength grows. By rescuing someone from every storm, you may shield them from the rain, but you also deny them the rainbow that follows. By catching them before every fall, you may save them from the bruise, but you also keep them from discovering the resilience in their bones. Letting go is not turning your back. It is stepping aside so life itself can do its sacred work. And what about you? What happens to your soul when you finally release? Suddenly, the hands that were once clenched are open. The weight that bent your back is lifted. You can breathe again, laugh again, dream again. In clinging, you were shrinking. In releasing, you expand. In clutching, you were bound. In letting go, you are free. Freedom comes not from controlling everything, but from trusting that not everything is yours to control. Perhaps you fear that letting go means they will no longer need you. Perhaps you fear it means the relationship will dissolve. But understand this, relationships built only on your fixing, only on your saving, only on your endless giving were never relationships at all. They were dependencies. And dependency is not love. True love, true friendship, true connection does not collapse when you release. It transforms. It evolves. It grows stronger because it is no longer held together by force, but by choice. There is also the letting go of what is already gone, the dreams that no longer serve you, the people who have already walked away in spirit, even if their shadows still linger, the seasons that have ended, though you try to drag them into the present. Holding on to what has died only robs you of the life blooming before you. The tree does not cling to its autumn leaves. It releases them so that spring may come again, and so must you. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean you did not care. It does not erase the love, the effort, the memories. It simply means you no longer carry what was never meant to remain in your hands. It means you trust that what is truly yours will remain, and what leaves was never meant to define your worth. The freedom of letting go is the freedom to live again, to stop being chained to the outcomes of others, to stop being bound by the fear of what might happen if you are not the one holding the pieces. It is the freedom to choose yourself without guilt, to nurture your own dreams, to tend to your own wounds, to walk in your own light. Letting go is not weakness. Weakness is holding on when your hands are bleeding, when your soul is weary, when your spirit is crying for release. Strength is found in the open hand, in the willing heart, in the brave soul that says, I release you to your journey, and I release myself to mine. So often we imagine freedom as escape from responsibility, from struggle, from pain. But true freedom is not escape. It is alignment. It is standing in the truth of what is yours and what is not. It is living in harmony with the rhythm of life, which teaches us again and again, everything has a season. Everything has its time. Everything must one day be released. And when you finally let go, you discover a new kind of love. Love that does not clutch, but trusts. Love that does not bind, but frees. Love that says, I honor you enough to let you walk your path. I honor myself enough to walk mine. This love is not desperate, not controlling, not suffocating. It is wide, it is open, it is limitless. It is the love that allows two souls to grow without chains, to thrive without captivity, to belong without possession. Freedom is not found in the endless fixing, but in the gentle, courageous act of letting go. And in that release, you do not lose. You gain. You gain peace. You gain strength. You gain the fullness of a life no longer weighed down by what you were never meant to carry, Dot. There comes a moment when you must ask yourself a question that shakes the very foundation of how you have been living. Whose life am I really living? Is it mine, or is it the life that others demanded of me? Is it shaped by my dreams or stitched together by the expectations, the needs, the crises of everyone else? Too many of us wake each morning wearing a life that does not belong to us, carrying burdens that are not ours, walking paths that were chosen by someone else's voice. And in the quiet hours, we wonder why our spirit feels restless, why our joy feels hollow, why we feel like strangers in our own skin. The answer is simple, though not easy. You have not yet chosen your own life. Choosing your life does not mean you stop loving others. It does not mean you turn your back on compassion, But it does mean you stop abandoning yourself in the name of being needed. It means you no longer make every decision based on who will be pleased or who will be angered, but instead you ask, what is true for me? What gives my soul peace? What ignites my heart? To choose your life is not to forsake others. It is to finally step into the fullness of who you are meant to be. For too long, you may have been the fixer, the rescuer, the one who always had to hold everything together. You became the shoulder, the safety net, the answer to every problem. But in becoming everything for everyone else, you forgot the truth. You are also someone. You are not just a role, not just a solution, not just a savior. You are a living, breathing being with dreams, desires, and a destiny of your own. Choosing your life is the holy act of reclaiming that truth. The world will try to tell you that your life is negotiable, that your value lies in how much you sacrifice, that your worth is proven by how quickly you abandon yourself for others. But that is not truth. That is bondage. Real love does not demand your erasure. Real purpose does not require your diminishment. Your existence was not gifted to you so that you could become a shadow in the story of everyone else's lives. You were born with a light of your own, a melody that belongs to you, a path only your feet can walk. To choose your life is to make peace with the fact that not everyone will understand. Some will resist. Some will accuse you of selfishness, of hardness, of arrogance. They have grown accustomed to your compliance, your yes, your endless availability. When you begin to choose your own life, you disrupt the system. You take away the certainty that they can always depend on you to forsake yourself. And yes, some may walk away, but the truth is this: if your presence depended on your self-destruction, then it was never love. It was need disguised as love. And losing that is not loss, it is freedom. Choosing your own life also requires courage, because it forces you to face the unknown. You may have lived so long by the scripts of others that you do not know what your own voice sounds like anymore. You may have been so accustomed to filling everyone else's cup that you are not sure what fills yours. The silence after you stop fixing can feel frightening. The blank page of a life you finally claim can feel overwhelming. But remember, emptiness is not absence. Emptiness is space. It is the wide open field where new dreams can take root, where long buried desires can bloom, where your true self can finally breathe. Choosing your life may mean walking away from certain roles, certain relationships, certain versions of yourself that once defined you. It may mean leaving behind the identity of the one who always saves, always sacrifices, always says yes. It may mean standing still long enough to listen to your own soul, to hear the whisper of what you really want. And that whisper, though quiet, is powerful. It will lead you home. Do not mistake choosing yourself for rejecting the world. In truth, when you live your life fully, you give the world a gift no one else can. When you choose your own path, you inspire others to find theirs. When you honor your own soul, you teach those around you that it is possible to honor theirs. A caged bird cannot teach others to fly. Only a bird that dares to stretch its wings, even against the wind, shows what freedom looks like. And oh, the joy that comes when you finally claim your own life. The heaviness that lifts when you are no longer bound to every demand, every crisis, every expectation. The quiet satisfaction of making choices not out of fear, not out of guilt, but out of love for yourself and the truth of who you are. To choose your life is to finally sit in the driver's seat, to hold the pen of your own story, to walk your path with open eyes and an open heart. You were not created to live as a ghost in your own home, an echo of your own voice, a shadow of your own soul. You were created to live fully, vibrantly, authentically. The world does not need another fixer who is drained, another martyr who is silenced, another soul who is erased in the name of duty. The world needs you, whole, alive, awake. And that begins with the brave, powerful, liberating decision to choose your own life, beloved, comma. The fixer's trap is not your destiny. You were not placed on this earth to be drained into nothingness. You were born to shine, to rise, to live your life in fullness. Lay down the heavy crown, step out of the endless cycle. Let your soul breathe again. For when you finally choose yourself, you do not lose others. You simply show them the way to find their own wings.